Yo, happy Friday, everybody. Today's lesson is comparing and ordering rational numbers again, but we're taking a little different approach today. Today, I'm kind of just going to ask you to graph the numbers on a number line, okay, which is really important to be able to do. So it's not as much like we did yesterday of kind of putting them in order and telling me which one's bigger or smaller. Today, I'm going to be putting them on the number line, okay? You're still going to be answering a couple of those questions for me today, but the focus is the number lines, right? So if you look at my first example here, what I got is a number line starting at 0, no negatives yet, and going up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in between these numbers are the parts of numbers, right? The fractional parts of the number. So in between 1, we've got, this little part, this little part, this little part. And this is where it gets really important, because in these problems today, we're going to be dealing with decimals and fractions, right? And that's what parts of numbers are, right? Decimals or fractions. So this is really important. I need you to tell me what that spot right there that I have an arrow at between 0 and 1 is. And this is how you're going to do it, okay? There's no guessing to it, right? Remember, there's no real guessing to math except unless we're estimating. What we're going to do is we're actually going to look at how many spaces there are in between the numbers, right? So if I start at 0 here and I count 1, 2, 3, 4. That means there's 4 spaces. That means this is cut into fourths, right? We can clearly see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in there. So this is cut into fourths. So what I would do is start at 0 and I would count to this spot where my arrow is. Knowing this is fourths, then I'm going to count 1, 2. So where this arrow is 2 of those fourths, meaning that this spot is 2 fourths. And if you told me that, excellent job. That can be written a little bit better though. Some of you guys might have noticed that 2 fourths can be simplified, right? 2 fourths can be divided by 2 to be equivalent to 1/2, which some of you might have said. And that would be a way better answer. But let's just, for the sake of argument, keep it a little simpler right now. Let's see about this one right here. This one's a little different because it's not between 0 and 1. It's not just a regular fraction. It's after 1. So it's going to be 1 whole and then a little bit more. But remember, these are cut into fourths, right? It's still cut into fourths, right? And most number lines, if they are cut in, will be consistent all the way through all the numbers. One of the biggest mistakes that I'll see is that kids will go and they'll see 1, and that's good. And then they'll see, oh, well, the arrow is 1 after, so it's 1 and 1, 1.1 or something like that. That's not necessarily true, right? It's not 1.1. It's actually 1 and 1/4, which is not 1.1. Just because it's one space over does not mean it's 1 and 1/10, which is what you're trying to say. It's actually 1 and 1/4, which if we're going to make it a decimal, we would actually divide 1 by 4, and 1/4 is 0.25. So that would actually be 1.25 right in that exact spot. But again, what we're really trying to just determine is how to determine what these lines are on a number line, right? What these spots are. Now we're going to travel on down a little bit further, and we can see that this line right here, if we keep going down, would be 1, 2, 3, and then a little bit more, right? 3 and these are fourths, so I know it's 3 and 1, 2, 3 fourths. So this one's 3 and 3 fourths. And again, that could be turned into a decimal if you wanted to. Just divide 3 divided by 4, you get 0.75, so we have 3.75. But that's the spot there. And then again, our last one here, 4 and this one is 1, 2 spots away. So again, this is another half. So 4 and 2 fourths, or 4 and a half, right? So that will be how we determine what spots are on a number line. And that's going to be your job today. This one, we have some negative numbers included. So let's take a look at this one real quick. How about we look at this spot right here? I want you guys to see if you can just think of it right now. What would this spot be in terms of fractions? You don't have to tell me the decimal. It's a little bit more difficult to do because you got to convert it. But just tell me what the fraction spot of this would be real quick. Look at that. If we start at 0, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 spaces. So it's 5 spaces. This is split into fifths, unlike the last one that was split into fourths. Okay? So what I'm going to do is count this in terms of fifths. So I'm going to start at 0 and count 1, 2. So if that's 2 spaces over, then that makes this 2 fifths. If you said 2 fifths, good job. Right? Remember, this is not 0.2 just because we went 2 spaces over. That's, again, a big mistake that a lot of people will make. How about this one down here? This one is past 1, past 2. So we go 1, 2, and a little bit more, right? So it will be 2 and then a little bit more. And we already know this is cut into 1, 2, 3, 4 fifths. So it'll be 1 and 1 fifth, right? Or 2 and 1 fifth. Right there. So if you got 2 and 1 fifth there, excellent job. Now let's try these negatives out real quick. And this part gets a little interesting because it's easy for us to go this way on the number line, but it's a little bit weirder to go the other way. So let's go backwards. And this is, you literally have to go backwards here. So let's start with this one here. We're going backwards, 0 to -1 to -2 to -3. We want to get these fractional parts along the way. So we start at 0. We know it's still cut into fifths, so I'm going to count backwards. 0, we're going to go back 1, 2, 3 places. So that's just -3 fifths, right? Because we went back 3 spaces here in between 0 and -1. So it's -3 fifths. And then if we go back and check this place here, we're moving backwards. We go 0, we go back -1. So it's going to be negative. And this is where everyone's going to make their mistake, because they're going to see -2 here, and they're going to go a -2 and 2 fifths. And they'll say this is -2 and 2 fifths. Wrong. Negative numbers move backwards. You have to start and go this way. So it's not -2 and 2 fifths, like on a positive side of the number line. You go backwards and you go -1 and 1, 2, 3 fifths. So this is actually -1 and 3 fifths. Okay, guys, hopefully this was a good intro to graphing rational numbers on a number line. And again, if they're decimals, then all you have to do is just turn the fraction into a decimal. If you got questions on it, let me know. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.